The Seattle Kraken tried to continue a very specific streak at home, plus one of our OGs returns.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala here, coming to you just before the puck drops at Climate Pledge Arena. The Seattle Kraken will host Chicago, and that means the return of Ryan Donato. We're going to talk about that, one of my favorite topics. But before that, let's get you ready for tonight's game, what we know about Chicago, what we know about the Kraken going in. And then we're also going to talk about Capo Caco coming back into the lineup, but at the sacrifice of Jani Nyman. We'll get into all of that on today's episode, which is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, Erica L. Ayala here. Thank you to our everydayers. And our everydayers, you're going to get a treat. We've got some things network-wide and then specifically for the Locked On Kraken show that are going to be exciting, especially in an Olympic year. So if you're not already, subscribe. We'll have an opportunity for some written stuff from yours truly. So again, some good stuff we have coming down the pike. For those who I am meeting for the first time, whether our audio listeners or video, my name again, Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken, also an accredited media member for Milano Cortina, while I will be covering the women's and men's ice hockey tournaments. Okay, for today's game, the Seattle Kraken taking on the Chicago Blackhawks. This is game number 10 for the Seattle Kraken. This is going to be the penultimate game of a 5-game home stint, and I will be at the next home game, or at least that's the plan. I gotta say, as a Donato fan, I'm a little gutted I couldn't make it in town for this one, but I just got back from home, which is New York City for me. But this is going to be a good one. The Kraken are 5-1-0 at home and 8-4-0 overall versus the Blackhawks. And speaking of the Seattle Kraken, they have collected a point at every single during every single one of their home games. And so while, you know, some of these overtime losses, a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, the Seattle Kraken have been able to, in some ways and in some respects, defend the deep. And we need them to continue doing that. Tough game against the New York Rangers. And actually, I want to go over that a little bit. Again, the debut of the Abyss Awakens. I think the unis looked pretty good. The Seattle Kraken, though, outshot 27-13. We heard from Jaden Schwartz earlier today, and he had a lot to say about the Seattle Kraken being pushed to the outside and not really getting inside looks. He also talked about the power play, etc. But I liked what he had to say, and the amazing Allison Lucan asking about movement, thinking about the power play, but just being in the offensive zone. But here are a few snippets from one of our alternate captains, Jaden Schwartz, talking to media ahead of today's game.
I think we had the puck a decent amount. We just weren't getting the puck to the net. We weren't inside enough. They did a good job. They're a pretty tight team and kept us to the outside, but we got to do a better job of getting numbers inside, getting pucks there. You need a couple guys inside. So, I think our puck management and zone time was decent, but just got to obviously shoot more when we have the chance and then find a way to get there around the net.
And to that point, it is true, obviously as the game went on, you spent more and more time in the offensive zone. What adjustments maybe did you guys make to transition more effectively?
Just moving the puck quick, moving our feet. Our D did a good job of moving the puck up, and then I think just hounding pucks, been tenacious on them and then making the next play when you got it. But they did a good job of pressuring them, and I think all year we've had a good forecheck. Our D are moving the puck quick and jumping up in the play and giving us options there as well.
What about this team coming in? They obviously thrive on a lot of speed offensively. What will you focus on defensively in face of that?
Yeah, just got to check hard. They got a lot of skill, and they've been playing hard defensively too, and checking hard. And I don't know their record, but I know they're off to a pretty good start too. They're a dangerous team. Can make plays off the rush. They can, they got D-man who jump into play, and they can make east-west plays. So we just got to make sure we're back with numbers, taking away their time and space, and make sure we're in the right spots defensively. But if we can play in the O-zone more and have the puck down there, that obviously helps defensively as well.
Jaden, Stevie gets the power play goal the other night. What have you made from your group's play with the extra man so far?
Yeah, it's been good. It's obviously every game's a little bit different, and it's a work in progress, with adjustments and just, guys in different spots. And, I think our break-ins have been pretty clean. Moving the puck well. I think at the end of the day, I think we can still shoot the puck a little bit more and get numbers inside. But PP's been good and giving us momentum, and I think we got power play goals in a lot of games so far.
Jaden, to that point, it feels like there's a lot more player movement on the power play this year. How do you get even more comfortable with that? How does that evolve over time?
As far as guys moving around and stuff, positionally?
Yes.
Yeah, I think guys have just, before they got to the NHL, I think guys are probably in different positions, and a lot of half-wall guys now are, who probably played half-wall growing up or before the NHL are probably now in the middle or in front of the net. And, even as you break in, sometimes you're going to end up in different positions. So you need guys to, even in practice, to move around and work on different plays, because you're not always going to be in the same position, because puck battles and break-ins and face-offs. So there's always different scenarios, but a lot of smart players, and a lot of that goes to just watching film and then working on practice and just seeing what our options are and making sure guys are comfortable in different situations.
So that was Jaden Schwartz. He said a lot of great things, again, talking about movement, what needs to happen. This is a really interesting Chicago team coming in tonight. The Seattle Kraken are going up against a young team. Not only is Donnie Boy coming back, but Andre Burakovsky as well. When you look at this head-to-head for the Seattle Kraken versus Chicago, looking at the numbers, again, Jaden likes what's happening on the power play, and we can see that the power play is one of the areas where the Seattle Kraken have an advantage over Chicago. 21.9% clip coming into tonight's game on the power play for the Seattle Kraken, an 18.9% clip, 19th overall. Penalty kill, though, that's an area the Seattle Kraken need to be better. 67.9%, 28th overall in the league, compared to 82% right now for Chicago. Faceoffs are about even, but 31st in the league, the Seattle Kraken, with a 44.3% clip, 24th overall for Chicago. Chicago, they are giving up 2.83 goals per game, 11th overall in the league. The Seattle Kraken at 2.82, that's 9th overall. But Chicago, that is, are 17th overall in goals for at 3.17, where the Seattle Kraken are sub 3 goals per game at 2.73, best for 24th. So the offense is something that we need to see. And that is where, I have a question, honestly, to pose to the fan base with regard to Kaapo Kakko versus Jani Nyman. And we'll hear a little bit from Lane Lambert on why he made that choice for the last game. But, it was reported earlier that we did see Jani Nyman taking some reps and getting into the action at morning skate. So perhaps there is a way for him to crack the lineup. But Lane Lambert will give us the keys to success for Nyman moving forward and why we didn't see him in the last game. We'll get into that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track. And that can mean leaving money on the table. And that's why I like using Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface that you can find on your laptop or your mobile device. It has helped me organize my business accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my cash flow, which is huge for a business. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Thanks as always, Seattle hockey fans, for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala. And for our everydayers, and especially our everydayers who are OGers, you know I'm super excited to have Chicago in the house. I will be probably listening on the radio. I was back home, and I was trying to listen on the radio, and they kept feeding me the Rangers feed. It was good. It just wasn't familiar. You know how sometimes you just want something familiar. Probably should have turned my VPN on. But either way, an exciting game, a lot to like from that game, but it's more of the same. And that's not that it's a bad thing. The Seattle Kraken being able to forge back, being able to fight back, being able to find goals on the power play. As a matter of fact, we have coming into this game 4 skaters that are riding 2-game point streaks. That includes Vince Dunn, Jaden Schwartz, who we heard from, Ellie Tolvanen, and Brandon Montour, the hottest of them all. 3 goals and 1 assist in the last couple of games here. And, you know, we want to continue that. The Seattle Kraken have points in 9 of their first 11 games, and that's 14 points overall. And, you know, they have not lost a regulation game at home, going 3-0-2 at CPA. I told you a couple of episodes ago now, Adam Larson talked about it. Jaden Schwartz and Jordan Eberle talked about it during training camp. This team wants to be better at home. And I do still think there are I almost said logistical. There are very specific things that this Kraken team needs to continue to do better. I talked about the penalty kill needs to be better, things of that nature, but they're starting to fall into play. But one thing that has to get better, and I alluded to it in the first segment when I talked about goals for, goals against, just to go over that again. The Seattle Kraken goals for 2.73 goals per game. Comparative just to Chicago this season, who are at 3.17. So Chicago's 17th in the league overall. The Seattle Kraken are 24th. They have to be able to score more goals. They have to be able to create more offense. And we heard, at least from Jaden Schwartz, that in that game against New York, a very a defensive-minded team was able to push us to the side. We heard from Lane Lambert earlier today that this is a defensive-minded Chicago team. So Seattle has to get bodies in front. And that's what Jani Nyman has been tasked to do. But he was a healthy scratch. And what we heard from Lane Lambert is that it was a logistical thing. And we've heard that also about Jared McCann, who just, so y'all know, he did confirm, Lane Lambert that is, that McCann is still day-to-day. So what is it exactly that Jani Nyman isn't doing, or is it that simple? Well, let's hear what Lane Lambert had to say specifically about that, and then a few other things.
Clearly, we haven't generated enough offense probably in the last couple of games. We've talked about shot volume. We've talked about, shots creating other shots. and just putting more pucks to the net. You've got to score greasy goals in this league. We're not going to be able to pass it into the net. So we've got to get ourselves in that mindset, so to speak. And I'm looking forward to seeing it tonight.
Lane, obviously this year Jani Nyman's had to learn a little bit more on the fly. What are you looking from him, to add to his game or take with him going forward? It looked like he got a couple looks at morning skate today.
Yeah. With Jani, like I said, it wasn't anything that he did or didn't do. Certainly, he didn't do anything wrong. It was a bit of a numbers situation last game, But we're looking for him to continue to grow as a player with his 200-foot game and chip in and provide offense for us. And he's done a decent job of that so far. So, we need his goal scoring.
So, I wanted to end it there. I have a blank screen back here. Anyway, for those on video, I was watching, what was I watching? A series I was streaming a series. Anyway, if it comes up, I'll bring it up again. But what we heard from Lane Lambert there is this team needs more offense. Again, the numbers just comparative to Chicago, but also seeing where we are at in the league. And those are just basic numbers. I know a few days ago, I guess Friday's episode, I talked about a comment that Striatic left about some of the advanced goals, versus or goals against expected. And what's wild is you can see that there's an offensive hole there, but the Seattle Kraken are, again, in some of those advanced analytics and statistics, they're doing better than some people thought. Now, I can tell you the Kraken are performing better than I was expecting. That being said, I'm a little bit concerned that what we're seeing now isn't sustainable. And Striatic has said that. We've had, I think George has commented that. We've had a few people say that in the YouTube comments. And I think we're all on the same page. It's almost like, is the bottom going to fall out here? And so that's why I find it interesting that the Seattle Kraken right now don't have two guys that can bring some size to this lineup in the lineup. Now, I understand you got to get Kaapo Kakko back into the game, back into game fitness. That makes a lot of sense to me. But I think what also makes sense is, Jani Nyman maybe finding a way to push him to get where this team needs him to be. And maybe him sitting out the game is going to help do a little bit of that. But I just think that you have to at least consider his size and what he's capable of doing. But what we saw against the Rangers is Beniers centering Catton and Eberle, Stevenson centering Schwartz and Tolvanen, and then Wright centering Kaapo Kakko and Mason Marchment. Now, after the game, Kaapo talked about he was playing his former team. He was coming back from injury, and he was on a new lineup. All of that was it was a lot for him in his first game, again, with this team. I don't get the sense that he liked it all that much, all of the newness. But right now, that top line is occupied by Berkly Catton. I'm not sure if that's going to be a long-term thing. I think it depends on how Kaapo Kakko starts integrating. But I wonder where the balance is. And I don't think Lane Lambert has to answer this question yet, especially with the injuries that we still have. But we're going to have to figure out what are the right combinations and who are the right personnel. To me, Jani Nyman and what he did in the preseason, he should have a larger, more significant role offensively. That being said, Jani Nyman has to perform and has to show up for this team. And there's more that the Kraken are wanting, not just from him, but from everybody. But if we look at the numbers right now, Jani Nyman, 10 games played, he's got 3 goals in 3 games, and those are his points. 3 goals, in 10 games played, just missing that last game. We want to see more from him for sure. And the fact that he's scoring goals is what we want. But we've heard from Jessica Campbell in the past that Nyman has to get to the net. But again, we heard from Jaden Schwartz that that's not just a Jani Nyman thing. That's a Seattle Kraken thing that needs to happen. But it seems to me like Jani Nyman. And I there's two things that come to mind. One is that he needs to be aggressive and get net front. I think that's a way he'll find himself minutes. But I think also, if I had to guess, and something that I will be watching closely when I'm in Seattle, is Jani Nyman giving what Lane Lambert wants from his players from a defensive perspective. And there is a little bit of the rub. And again, what are the goals of this Kraken team? Because can we, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes for those listening on audio, can we afford to perhaps sacrifice some offense that we would get from Jani Nyman to make the point that everyone has to play defense? I do think this is a team where everyone has to play defense because we're not getting enough offense, to make that a factor. So at least for now, my answer to that, to my own question, or, kind of pondering, is yes, Jani Nyman has to show that he is defensively minded. And if Jani Nyman can be part of the catalyst to start getting goals and getting us at, if not beyond, 3 goals per game on average, get us out of the lower end of the league when it comes to how many goals we score, can he, through his offensive game, perhaps force Lambert and the coaching staff's hand to give him more minutes? I guess we'll find out. But I don't know, if Berkly Catton, who's played 6 games and also has 3 points, but all 3 of them assists, how long is he going to be able to keep that spot if players like Nyman and Kakko, when Jared McCann comes back? Again, what is the goal of the team this year? Because if it is development of Berkly Catton and keeping him in the NHL by any means necessary, then that kind of stinks for Nyman in particular, in my opinion. And maybe for some other players as well. But if the goal is to be a more competitive team than we were last year, I don't know if again, what is that tipping point? What is the value added between Nyman versus Catton versus Kakko versus McCann or anyone else? And I don't think we know yet. And Lane Lambert hasn't been forced to make those decisions, but the time is coming up. So I don't know. Is Nyman the healthy scratch that I would have made based on what I saw in the preseason? No. Based on what I've seen in the regular season, I think it's a little bit more understandable, but I probably still wouldn't have done it because for me, Jani Nyman brings the size and the knack for the net that for me at this point in time is just slightly more valuable than what Berkly Catton is bringing. But if Berkly Catton's development is the primary thing for this season, then I think what we're seeing makes sense. But let me know in the comments because I keep going back and forth. I know that we should be talking about the balance on the roster. I just don't know what the right answer is because, again, Lambert and this coaching staff, they can't possibly be, air quotes, using air quotes again here, forced to make that decision given the injuries that they are still dealing with, which are Ryker Evans, upper body, Freddie Gaudreau, upper body, Jared McCann, lower body. So there's room right now. But what happens when there's not? We're going to find out what the philosophy is, at least in the short term, by what Lambert and his coaching staff decide to do. And won't that be interesting? But coming up next, I want to talk about a player of yesteryear who I'm very fond of. And actually, again, if we could have more Ryan Donato on this particular style of Kraken team, I think we would be in good shape. And I'll explain what that means, especially for those who are not our everydayers or OGers and know how much I love Ryan Donato, but also know how much I love Ryan Donato's game and the sandpaper that he brings. But we'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken, as I mentioned at the top of the show, brought to you by Gametime. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in the queues, surprise fees, and the prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on the Kraken. That's where Gametime comes in. The app gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Now, I love using Gametime when I'm in Seattle, mostly to look at concerts or Mariners games when they're playing and I'm in town. And it honestly couldn't be simpler. I'm able to, when I use Gametime, to look at my seats in minutes, see what's available, see what's in my price range. And I love that when I'm looking at the prices, I'm seeing what I would pay, no hidden fees at checkout. Plus, I can see exactly what my view from any particular seats that I'm considering would be before I buy in the app. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by a new and local sponsor, and that is Doer. Now, Doer is a super cool company that I'm excited that is working with us here at Locked On Kraken and our Seattle kind of Pacific Northwest shows. And that is because these are the Doer jeans that I have arriving soon. I love the story behind it. This founder was someone who traded in a car for a bike, wanting to just live a different, healthier lifestyle, less of a carbon footprint. But in doing that biking, and I'm a biker myself, you know, I have my cycle. Actually, I got to take it to the shop. That's a whole nother story. But you know, when I'm biking, you have to be careful what kind of pants you're wearing. And Doer is all about comfort. These are jeans that are comfortable. They are breathable because of the material that they prioritize. And they're antibacterial, meaning your jeans will stay fresh longer so you can wear more and wash less. And they're made with Cool Max that regulates your body temperature and wicks away moisture, all in a very high quality, very stylish looking pair of jeans. I've seen the men's cut and the women's cut. They even have t-shirts and things of that nature. And it was so much fun to go on the Doer website and pick out the styles that I want to try. So for those who want to combine classic jeans wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear, Doer is the best of both worlds. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Get a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Go now to shopdoer.com/LockedOnSeattle. You'll get 15% off your first order. That's shopdoer.com/LockedOnSeattle for 15% off. shopdoer.com/LockedOnSeattle. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination, especially on a game day. That's right. The Seattle Kraken back at Climate Pledge Arena, their penultimate game, home game before they hit the road again. And we'll come back later in the month. I will be in Seattle for all of the rest of the home games for the month of November. Going to be doing some more content and batching, especially ahead of the Olympics. So we'll have some fun stuff for you. That means I will be in town for tomorrow's PWHL or Wednesdays, PWHL, Thursdays. Good grief. I don't know what day it is. Wednesday, we get a new or an introductory press conference with the new head coach of the Seattle Storm. Thursday, a special announcement for PWHL Seattle. Reading the tea leaves a little bit here. It's going to be at Mopop. So my guess is, as many have deduced, and what we've talked about on Locked On Kraken with Ava Wood, and what we've talked about on the Women's Hockey Report, although odd, we know that the Seattle Kraken the Seattle PWHL Seattle released their jerseys, their kind of holdover jerseys that they're going to wear in the inaugural season. But I think that they're going to release the jersey and showcase it like we've seen Seattle Kraken jerseys showcased at Mopop. I think they're going to unveil and have displayed the PWHL Seattle name and official logo and official jersey. That's my guess. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but I will be there, and so will Ava, and we will report right here on Locked On Kraken, as well as a little bit over on the Women's Hockey Report, which you can find every Saturday morning on the Locked On NHL channel. Okay, back to the Seattle Kraken, because my boy Ryan Donato is coming back. And everything that we've heard, whether it's Jaden Schwartz, whether it's hearing from Lane Lambert, this team, the Seattle Kraken, they have the beginnings of moxie, but now we need someone to bust through, meet Jaden Schwartz where he's at, net front, meet Jaden Schwartz where he's at with that consistency, continuity, leadership. We need more guys to be able to really bust through offensively. This is an offensively polite Seattle Kraken franchise, and we need someone who's just nasty with it. Ryan Donato is the perfect example. A lot of firsts in Seattle Kraken history have involved Ryan Donato. If you want to talk about net front presence, Donato is your guy. And yes, he is playing for the opposition tonight, but I will always love and admire his game. I wanted him to be a forever Kraken. Hey, who knows? Maybe he'll find his way back. But what we like about Ryan Donato, what I like about Ryan Donato, and I know I'm not alone. I know there's a certain a section of the fan base, this Kraken fan base, that just like me has a special place in their heart for Ryan Donato. And that's because of what he can do. He is an energy guy. He is a sandpaper P&V guy. P&V came from Ryan Donato, where he dropped the piss and vinegar thing, that you got to play with some P&V every once in a while. He's a hardworking guy, and he started to really find his stride with Chicago, which I love to see as a fan. It's a little tough to see as someone who covers the Seattle Kraken, because I want him to do it for us. But what we're seeing from Ryan Donato is when you look at this Chicago team. Well, first let's start at the top, right? You got Connor Bedard leading in points, 15 points. The breakdown there, 6 goals, 9 assists. You have Nazar with 11 points. So those are your two guys that have, double-digit points. His breakdown, 5 goals, 6 assists. Andre Burakovsky. We tried to put all our offense in the Berkey basket. Didn't really work out, but he's 3rd overall, tied with Teravainen with 9 points. Burakovsky, 4 goals, 5 assists. Teravainen with 2 goals, 7 assists. And right behind them is Ryan Donato. That's right. Top 5 scoring. He also is getting just a hair under 16 minutes per game time on ice. But for Ryan Donato in 12 games, 6 goals. 6 goals, which I love to see for him, and 2 assists. Ryan Donato is your garbage time, crash the net. He's usually celebrating a goal underneath the goaltender because he was rushing the net kind of guy. And, I think that the Seattle Kraken, they have to be able to find a way to get a little bit more oomph from, guys like Beniers, guys like even Berkly Catton. He's doing really well, and he's got to level it up. Capo Kakko coming back as a playmaker, setting guys up. He's going to be with Marchment and Shane Wright. I think even though Kakko is getting accustomed to it, I like the idea, because in theory, right, that means Marchment can do a lot more crashing and diving to the net. in theory, because he's got two other guys with Wright and Capo who move the puck well, can skate well, and they can set up guys. So then Mason Marchment is doing what we heard Lane Lambert wants. It's not just a one and done when we're in the offensive zone, but you get multiple whacks at Weza. No, you get multiple shots on net in one sequence, right? That's what the Seattle Kraken, I think, did really well early in the season. And I think they've kind of retreated into their defensive identity, kind of hunkering down a little bit in the defensive end. So they have to push forward, really force the issue on the offensive side. And yes, I'm talking about the Kraken now, but again, that's what Ryan Donato does. And so it's going to be interesting to see if, as Ava Wood might say, who can match Ryan Donato's freak when it comes to crashing the net? Like, that's what I want to see. Jaden Schwartz is a candidate. If we see Jani Nyman in the lineup, expect him to dive to the net, because that's the call, that's the ask, and he wants minutes. He's worked hard to be an NHLer. And again, it was a little bit of a numbers game. Why we didn't see him in the lineup kind of drew the short straw, so to speak. But I do think if he is defensively sound, if he crashes to the net a la Ryan Donato, and matches his freak, quote unquote, then I think he's a guy that will find more minutes. Capo, what is he doing? How is he being active? So a lot of candidates. I've got a lot of guys that I want to be watching for, or probably in my case, listening out for when I'm listening to the game, to see if they can convert offensively and in just an elevated way. Because the Seattle Kraken have to up their game, not just because we're seeing them get into these overtime games, but they have to be able to keep pace with the rest of the league when it comes to offense, because there are going to be times where the defense falters. There are going to be times where, I think we've already seen it, where our goaltending is maybe not exactly where we want it to be, which again is mind-boggling to me when you carry three goaltenders and yet Joey Daccord is still doing the heavy lifting here. I mean, I know he's our number one, and I thought the whole point was to get him enough rest. And I don't really know what's happening. We're going to have to talk about goaltending again. Let's see what we see. It's probably going to be Joey Dax. Is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? I don't know yet, except what I do know is that we should be getting more rotations if you're going to carry three guys. If not, then we could have had another forward position, and then Jani Nyman wouldn't have to be a healthy scratch, and neither would Berkly Catton, but I digress. Anyway, let's get you ready for the game tonight. A reminder, if you're not already, follow us on social media. Almost all of our social media accounts are back up and running. The amazing Jordan Dabney, Joe Dabney, helping out with that. But this is going to be an exciting one. Andre Burakovsky returns. Ryan Donato returns. This is a scrappy team that's young, showing how young teams can play. And we've gotten burned by Chicago in the past, in the very recent past, And so this is a good test for this Kraken team under the Lane Lambert system. A reminder, be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another. And we hold fast, we stay true, and loud and proud, we say, let's go Kraken. Enjoy the game, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Locked On Kraken. Erica L. Ayala signing out.